I think so many times in doing the television show, we said, the things we could do if we had another $100 or another $1,000, because we were on a very low budget. And the idea of being able to do it the way that we had so often dreamed of doing it was something that we all wanted to try once.
I think you're going to see in Star Trek the Motion Picture, you're going to see a scene, quite a long scene, really, where special effects has done quite a lot to people, you know? And I saw some of it yesterday, and it's really, really weird, but terribly fascinating. It does something to their actions and their voice and their looks and everything else. But those actors went right ahead and did exactly what they had to do, and the special effects people then took them and twisted them around. And it's super stuff. Can't believe it. Never seen it done before.
One of the most difficult things to do, I think, in pictures, if you're working, there's a force field in front of you, and it's not there, and a highly dramatic situation is going on. It's really where you really have to grab your self-control and completely put yourself into this situation uninhibitedly. Because I'm sure if someone was on the set of this, they would think you were absolutely insane, you know. You can't stop to think about that. You know what you're doing, and you have to do it. But it's very difficult to do something like that.
The state of the arts in special effects just changes daily. There's no part of movie making that's seen such a revolution. For example, our stars in Star Trek, when we first made it, were pinholes we punched in a black sheet with light shining behind, and we would photograph several levels of these to give dimension. It's all being done now by, not all, but a great deal of it's being done now by computers. It's an incredibly complex art, special effects, but the result of it is you get a feeling of reality such as you will never have seen before.
We're fortunate in coming back as a motion picture rather than a television series, because that inevitable sense of expectation is there, and I think that the scope and the sound, the stereophonic sound, will help us achieve that sort of new sensual capturing of it. I do think that Star Trek will be a success in that regard. We will be able to fulfill the expectations that the audience has of us.
I think that the script is a good adventure story, and into it is knit, indigenous to the story, are the special effects. And the special effects, there's a great deal of it, and the special effects also are on the artistic forefront. They're in the state of the arts. The people involved with the special effects, Doug Trumbull and John Dykstra, are responsible for Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Star Wars. So they're the top people in the world at the very height of their skills, doing things that have never been done before. That's the special effects on Star Trek, and they've been knit into the script, I think, extremely well, and the finale of the show, if you will, is very much part and parcel of the whole play.
I think the story is strong enough that it will maintain itself. I'm sure that that the motion picture will by far exceed anything that we were able to do in the television series, for two important reasons. One is that when we did the television series, we simply did not have the time or money to turn out the kind of special effects that we're talking about. Therefore, there had to be much more emphasis on the actors, on performance. Also, today, 1979 and 80, as compared to the mid-60s, audiences, I think, expect far more in the way of special effects because they have seen such spectacular work done. So I don't think we want to try to underwhelm them with this picture, and I don't think we will. I think that quite the opposite will happen. I think that they will be overwhelmed by the combination of the beautiful effects work, the beautiful photography, the orchestration of the chemistry of this original Star Trek cast, plus the new people, Steve Collins and Persis Khambatta, who I think work very well within that orchestration, and a fascinating, very important story, very mysterious story, frightening story, and finally a very powerful, I think, powerful story.
Well, I wanted the motion picture and the role to be like the series. I didn't want to disappoint the fans of Star Trek. At the same time, I wanted to bring to it as much as I could. I had grown as a human being in the 10 years since the series, and I wanted to bring some aspects of that maturation. And I wanted the story, the script, to reflect the philosophy, the values that the series had, plus the magnificence of the big screen. And I feel we've done that. The writers and everybody who cooperated on this motion picture accomplished that.
I think a really great movie sends you out of the theater smiling, whether it's a serious film, whether it's a comedy or science fiction. You go out of the theater very, very glad you were there. And I hope that that people are a little bit thrilled by it. And I hope it makes them smile. And I don't mean smile in terms of laughter, but there's a certain kind of smile. It's always interesting to watch people coming out of a theater, and they're usually either smiling and animatedly talking, or they're not. And I hope this one lights them up a little bit, because I think it has that potential, and that's what we were all going after. Just changing people's minds a little bit about what some of the possibilities ahead of us are. And if we did that at all in a positive way, that would be very exciting.
Our goal that we talked about first, when Bob Wise and I first sat down and began to plan what we were going to do, we said, our film will be a success if when people leave the theater, they'll want to sit around over a cup of coffee and discuss it. And I think we may have made that goal.
It's really, it's just so delightful, and people are really going to go away, and they're really going to think, and they're really going to have hope for the future. And of course, that's what a lot of people said that Star Trek was. It gave them hope for the future way back in the 60s. But this story is going to even, emphasize that. And I think people are going to be terribly pleased with it. I mean, really so pleased that they're going to want to see it and see it and see it.
Oh, wow. I'm going to go see it again and again and again, that they'll keep coming back to it. Because I think, that's the phenomenon that's happened with science fiction. And particularly, I think, with Star Trek. It is so packed, so rich with so many stimuli, intellectual, visual, with Ilea, sexual. She's very stimulating. But because it's so packed with a density of stimuli that you can't fully absorb it in one viewing.
They come away terribly satisfied that even after 10 years, we still know how to do it and do it well.
Well, ideally, of course, they will have been entertained and held for the 2.5 hours, say, and will have gotten their money's worth in entertainment. There is a possibility that they will have been enlightened and enthralled as well. If the ending of the movie is what we all hope it to be, it could be a real experience for them.
I hope that they're going to walk out of the movie fulfilled, and when I say fulfilled, that they have seen a Star Trek on the big screen. And I hope that they will walk out with a joyful feeling about it. I just hope that they all walk out happy and say, man, that was it, wasn't it? That's what we've been waiting for. That's the daddy of them. And with that good feeling, that really sends you out like so many of the episodes did. That's my hope for Star Trek.
I would hope that they will come out and say that's a terrific picture. I would like to see it again. I will tell my friends to see it. I think everybody in it was wonderful. I think the photography is brilliant. I think the story is exciting. Didn't you love the scene where? You know, good movie talk, good audience movie talk. I would hope that we'll get all of that.
I might tell you one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard, and I only heard this recently. It perhaps moved me more than anything else and gives you an idea of the vast range of what a Trekkie is. I was being driven to an event in a limo, and the driver turned around to me and he said, I begged to come on this assignment. And I said, really, why? He said, because I wanted to meet you. He said, I wanted to tell you this story. He said, I was a Vietnam War veteran. I was in the Special Forces. I trained for many years. I'm a black belt in karate. And I was in the Special Forces in Vietnam for 6 months, and I was captured. And I was a prisoner of war for 2.5 years. I was in a camp with 10 other men. And he said, what you may have seen in the motion pictures, Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now, doesn't begin to touch what we had to go through. I was in a cell that every so often, for days at a time, they would flood, filled with water, up to my neck for days at a time. They would, on occasion, strap me, tie me up, bind me tightly so that my head was touching my knees for 6 days. When they released me, I feared that the most because it was so painful. There were 10 of us, and we needed to keep our sanity together. And the only way we could keep our sanity together was to play a game. The game was called Star Trek. These 10 men came from different states all across the country. We had nothing in common, except we had seen your television series. And the game was to try and remember as many of the old shows as possible. One of us would be Captain Kirk, one of us would be Mr. Spock. We'd all be different characters, and we'd try and play the shows as we remembered them. And that's the only thing that kept our sanity.